Hi everyone, Anthony Morganti here. Last week I did a tutorial demonstrating how to use the develop persona in Affinity Photo 2. In that video, I mentioned that in my next tutorial, I demonstrate how to use the photo persona. That's what we're going to be doing today. As a matter of fact, in today's video, I'm not only going to show you how to use the photo persona, I'm going to give you a possible workflow you could use when editing your images in Affinity Photo 2. We're going to open 3 different images up into Affinity Photo 2. We're going to start out our editing in the develop persona, then bring those images over to the photo persona and do more editing there. Now, as you can see, I have Affinity Photo 2 open. I'm going to go up to File, down to Open, and on my desktop I have 3 different raw files. I'm going to open all 3 of those up into Affinity Photo 2. Now, when you open raw files up into Affinity Photo 2, they'll open up in the develop persona. That's the same as in Photoshop. When you open raw files up into Photoshop, they'll open up into Adobe Camera Raw. And if you saw the video I did on the develop persona, and by the way, if you haven't seen the 2 previous videos I've done on Affinity Photo 2, I have links to them in the description below this video. Anyway, in that video I did last week, I mentioned that the develop persona in Affinity Photo 2 is akin to Adobe Camera Raw. That's where you would do some editing to raw files, and that's what we're doing here. So I have this image here. This is going to be kind of a tricky edit, and I wanted to show you how you might want to tackle it. Then I have this image here, which is a very simple edit. We're going to start out with that. And then at the end of the video, or the last edit I'll do in this video, is I'm going to show you how you may want to go about editing a wildlife image. So let's start out with this relatively easy image. And I'm just going to jump over to the right-hand side. We have these different tabs. I covered this in last week's video. We're going to start with the basic tab. I'm going to make it a bit brighter by moving exposure to the right. I'm going to get a black point by moving this to the right. And I'm going to bring brightness down just a little bit. I'm going to add a bit of clarity. And I'm going to add a bit of saturation. Not a lot. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to add saturation. I'm going to save that for when we edit in the photo persona. So we'll stay with that. Let's go down to highlights and shadows though. And let's even open up the highlights a little more and bring in highlights. Bring down highlights. Open up the shadows a little more. Bring down highlights. I'm sorry. I'll go to lens. We'll make sure that it found the lens, and it did. So it applied the lens profile. And you'll notice that there's this like little exclamation point on remove lens vignette. It will show that when the lens vignette was already removed, probably by a setting in the camera. But you'll notice the edges are a little dark. And a lot of times I found this with Affinity Photo. It claims that the vignette has already been removed outside of Affinity Photo, but I don't think it has. Click this and you'll notice it brightens up the edges. So I think that looks pretty good. Details is where we do sharpening and noise reductions for shot like at ISO 64. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need it to be any sharper than it already is. I'm not going to do anything here with curves, black and white, or split toning. And overlays is local adjustments. I'm not going to do that here. So I'm really done in the develop persona. I need to bring this over to the photo persona to continue my editing. Now to do that, all I need to do is go over here to the top left-hand side and click on the develop button. When I do that, it will bring the image with my edits into the photo persona. And if you look at the photo persona and you're familiar with Photoshop, you can see it's a Photoshop clone. We have layers on the right. We have all the tools over here on the left. We also have adjustment layers like Photoshop. Some are the same, some are different. We also have channels, and we have brushes over here. We also could get stock images from Pixabay. That's integrated in here if you wanted to do that. But let's go back to our layers panel. And what I want to do is I want to just do some editing to the sky. I want to make the sky look more dramatic. Now, if you are familiar with Photoshop, you know in Photoshop you could go up to select and down to select sky. That isn't an option in Affinity Photo 2, but there is a way we could select the sky because Affinity Photo 2 has something called the Object Selection Tool. It's this tool right here. It kind of looks like an owl to me. I don't know what it is, but it looks like an owl. When you click on it, just for a second, you'll have a little clock as a cursor. That's because it's examining the image and it's finding all the various elements in the scene. And then once the clock disappears, you could hover over something and you'll get diagonal lines when it finds it. You can see it found the sky. If I hover over here, I found the tree on the left. If I hover here, the tree on the right. If I hover here, the bench. If I hover on the grass, there's the grass. So I want to select the sky. Just hover over the sky until you get those slanted lines, and then click with left mouse button. And you'll get a selection. You could see that there's marching ants at the bottom going around the tree and going around the top. So I have a selection now of the sky. And I mentioned that I want to make the sky more dramatic. When you select something in an image and you use an adjustment layer or a filter, that adjustment layer or filter will only be applied to what is selected. So I'm going to go to adjustment layers and I'm going to open up levels, and there is like a preset level for darken. I'm going to just click on that and you can see it darken the sky, but I'm going to make it even darker. I'm going to move black level to the right. I'm going to move gamma to the right. And then we're going to make the whiter parts a little brighter by moving this white level slider to the left. So you could see how that applied or got applied only to the sky. It's not affecting anything else. And just to prove it, I'll just show you like that. All right. So make that a little darker. It looks pretty good like that. So we'll close this down. Now we'll go back to our layers panel, and you'll notice that it is an adjustment layer, just like in Photoshop. And I could turn it off by clicking this little button right here. There's before and there's after. I'll get rid of those marching ants by hitting Command or Control D on my computer. There's before, there's after. All right, that's pretty cool. Now I want to select the grass. I want to just make it more saturated, right? I have my object selection tool, but you'll notice if I'm hovering over the grass, nothing is happening. That's because I'm not on the actual layer that has the grass on it. I'm on the adjustment layer. So click on the layer that has the grass. This is called a pixel layer. Now when I hover over the grass, you can see I got the diagonal lines. So we'll click, get a selection of those grasses. Do I want to add the trees to it? I could click there and add those trees. Click and add that tree, that tree, that tree. So you could just click and add as I'm doing here. I'm adding to the selection. Let's just say that's good enough. All right. So I have that selected. Again, I'm going to go to adjustment layers. And here we have a vibrance adjustment layer. This is saturation and vibrance. So we'll click on that. Then it has default, simplify, complicate. I'm not sure what they call them that. You can click on simplify. Basically move vibrance down. I don't know. We'll just move it up. Move saturation up. You can see that's only affecting what I have selected, the grasses and the few trees I have selected in the background. So very simple edit. We'll get rid of the marching ants, hit Command or Control D. All right. Now, let's say I'm happy with this and I want to share it with the world. Well, how do we do that? Well, we'll go up to File, Export. And from Export, I could go up to this dropdown and I have the options to save it as a JPEG, a PNG, a GIF, a TIFF, all different options. I want to save it as a JPEG. I'm going to resize it so that the long side is 2000 pixels long. And when I do that and tab out of it, you'll notice it automatically adjusted the height as well. I want JPEG best quality preset. I could move the quality slider if I want, and it won't be a preset any longer. But I could JPEG best quality preset. I'm going to save the whole document. And we have some other advanced options here about the pixel format. I just use the defaults, embed the metadata, and just click export. And once you do that, it's going to ask you where, and to give it a name, I'm going to just call this bench. I'll save it to the desktop right there with the other one. So that exported the image as a JPEG. But what if we want to save all this work with all these layers? To do that, go to File, and then down to either Save or Save As. Go to Save As, and it's going to save it as an Affinity Photo. So AF photo, and I'll leave that same prefix there. We'll click Save. So it saved it. We're all done with this image right here. We could get rid of it. Just close it down. Now I mentioned this image is going to be a little more challenging. Again, we're in the develop persona to begin with. So let's make it a little brighter. Let's get a black point, move this to the right, brightness to the left a little bit. Let's add a little clarity. Let's go to shadows and highlights and open up the shadows a touch, or quite a bit actually, and bring in the highlights quite a bit. All right, let's go to the lens tab and make sure I found the lens, and it did. And it again has this exclamation point, but it does look like it's vignetting a little. So I'm going to click there to remove that vignette. I don't need to worry about noise or sharpening here. Again, I'm not doing anything with curves, black and white, or split toning here. And I'm not doing any local adjustments that what overlays are. So I'm ready to bring this over into the photo persona. Again, to do that, just click on the develop button. You're accepting these develop settings and bringing it into the photo persona. I'm going to do something similar. I want to select the sky. So I'm going to get the object selection tool. It's going to take a second. And when it does it, we'll find the sky. I'm going to click and select the sky. And you'll notice, though, that my selection isn't very good. It didn't select like this little area right in here and all this little edges around these trees. It didn't select right here. And it didn't select these holes in her body, or the sculpture. I say her, but the sculpture's body. And it didn't select in here that well. So I need to modify this selection. When you have the object selection tool open, there'll be a refine button here. If you have a different tool open, that refine button won't be there. But if you have a selection, you want to refine it, you can get to this by going up to select and then down to refine edges. Refine edges and the refine button are the exact same thing. When you click on either of those, you'll get this refine selection dialog. And you have 4 different types of brushes you could use. A matte brush, foreground, background, and feather. And it gets confusing. The matte brush is what you would use when you have this kind of sloppy selection around this complicated area of these tree branches. Even though I have a matte brush, to start out with, you're going to have an arrow. I don't know if this is a bug or what. But anyway, just click once and you'll have a brush. Then you could resize the brush with the bracket keys. The right bracket key will make it larger, left bracket key smaller. All right. Now I somehow got out of there. I must hit the wrong key. So we'll go back to this. All right. Now, so we have this matte brush and I want to get rid of this here. So I'll just click and you can see that it refines the edge is what it does. It's like a refine edge brush in Photoshop. So we'll come in here and refine this edge. So you just kind of keep painting on all these areas where it didn't select very well. It can be tedious, but it actually does a good job. And I actually have a video where I demonstrate a little more thoroughly how to use this. It's the first video I did on Affinity Photo 2 where I demonstrated how to do cutouts in it compared to Photoshop. And again, I'll have that listed in the description of this video. So where you see here, we're getting a better selection. And you'll notice where the red is, that's actually what's not selected. And where the red isn't is selected. So it might be backwards of what you maybe originally thought. So far it looks pretty good, right? Maybe click right there a little bit. There again. Okay, it's coming along. Now this area here, so we'll get a smaller brush, left bracket key, come in here and paint. And when I tried this before, it didn't work. Let's see what it does now. And true to form, it really didn't work. It's kind of you just keep painting though and see if it does. See, it's not working. So what you need to do is use either the foreground or background brush. And I don't know why they name these, because what you're trying to select now is actually in the background. I'm trying to select the background. The foreground brush is really the plus brush. I want to add to the selection. The background brush is the minus brush. I want to remove it from the selection. So if I want anything to have a red overlay on it, I would use the background brush. If I want anything to not have the red overlay on it, I would use the foreground brush. So I'd use the foreground brush and then I click here between there and you can see how now. Just click once, let it do. You can see though it's kind of smart. It will find it, but it kind of is more aggressive than the matte brush. See how the matte brush wouldn't have done this. It deselected part of the sculpture. So I'll go back to that matte brush and I'll try to fix it by painting there and there again a little more. You can see how I'm fixing where it over selected. Now let's see if the matte brush works for this little area in here. And it didn't. Try again. And it didn't. Try this area here, see if it works. And it didn't. So I'm going to have to get the foreground brush because again, I want to add to the selection. So click there and that worked. Get a smaller brush. And click there. And that actually worked pretty good. So the foreground brush sometimes you'd have to use for things like that. I think I've improved the selection pretty much, but you see how it kind of over selected there? So I'll get the background brush for that. I won't paint in there. and let it select. Maybe get a larger brush by hitting the right bracket key and then paint in there. Yeah, it's as good as it's going to get. So I like this selection. We're going to output it to a selection. You can see the options I have. I'm going to output it to a selection, click apply. Now I have a better selection. Now with all that done, I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to go to the adjustments. I'm going to get a levels adjustment, darken. And then we're going to make it even darker. And we're going to make the brighter parts a little brighter. Move this gamma to the right. Try to bring out more detail. I think that's all right so far. So that's pretty good. Now I still have my selection. So what I could do, I'd go back to layers. You could see that I have my adjustment levels now, or my levels adjustment done here. Go back to the pixel layer, go to adjustments, and instead of levels, let's go to brightness contrast. And let's just go to default where it doesn't move the sliders at all. And I want to add contrast. Oops. There we go. Add some contrast. Like that. All right. Close these down. Looks pretty good. Get rid of the marching ants by hitting Command or Control D. Now, I want to do something with the grass. So we'll go back to our layers. Make sure we're on the pixel layer, the background layer. Hover over the grass. We have that selected. I'll click on that. I want to add the trees. I'll click on that. So I'm adding the trees to my selection. Click this area here. Add all this in here. That looks good enough. Now you can see there's some marching ants in here. If not, there's another tool here you could use. It's the actual selection tool. And you come in here. It's like a quick selection tool in Photoshop. And then again, you could resize the brush with the bracket keys. We could come in here and get a minus brush here. So there, yep, and then come in here. So it kind of gets a little used to it. So that's not too bad. Now we have a selection of basically everything that's green. Go to the adjustments. I'm going to go to vibrance. And we'll go to complicate and move vibrance up. We'll move that up too. All right. Now, there's a very quick way you could refine an edge. Get rid of the marching ants by hitting Command or Control D, which, is something that you'll find you'll have to do quite often because the selection, although pretty good, sometimes needs to be refined and improved. Now, let's go to the wildlife image. What am I going to do here? Well, this kind of presents an issue, and the reason why I wanted to show it is this was shot with ISO 800. So there is actually a considerable amount of noise if I zoom in. And Affinity Photo doesn't have any AI noise reduction like Photoshop, Camera Raw does, or Lightroom does. So we have to make do with what it has, and I'll show you how to use it. But let's do our normal edit here. First of all, I want to crop it. So I'm going to go to the crop tool. I want to keep the original ratio, and I'm going to pull down from the top so the horizontal rule of thirds that's at the top is going across the eagle's eyes. I think that's good. Once you're satisfied with your crop, just click away from the crop tool to another tool, and it will commit to that crop. Now I'm going to make it brighter by moving exposure to the right. I'm going to get a black point, moving this to the right. Bring brightness down a little bit. I'm going to add some clarity. Not a lot though, just a little. And then go to highlights and shadows. And we'll open up shadows a little more. Bring in highlights a little more. We'll go to lens. Make sure I found the lens, and it did. I'm going to, again, even though it says that the lens vignetting was done, I'm going to do that anyway. And then details. Now I mentioned this was shot at relatively high ISO. If I zoom in by hitting Command plus a couple times and then bring it over here, you'll notice there's a considerable amount of noise. So what you need to do is go to luminance noise reduction and move it to the right. But what you want to be careful is you can move it so that you eliminate all the noise, but you'll soften the detail. Now you'll notice the feather detail of the eagle has been softened quite a bit. And if I bring this back to the left, how it returns. So you got to kind of find a happy medium where you're removing the noise or just reducing the noise enough, but not sacrificing so much detail in, like in this case, the feathers of the eagle. So I think right even around there is good. It still has a tiny bit of noise, but I still have some nice detail in the eagle, so I think that looks pretty good. If you have little like red, blue, or green dots, you would move this color slider to the right. By default, it'll be at 20%. What I found is usually that works fine. To fit this to screen, hit Command or Control 0 to fit it. To fit this to screen, hit Command or Control 0, not O, and you'll fit it to screen. So that's good. I'm not going to do any sharpening in the develop persona. I think that's fine. As a matter of fact, I think I'm done in the develop persona. Let's bring this over into the photo persona and sharpen just the eagle. So I'm going to click on the develop button. Now we're in the develop persona. I want to get a selection of the eagle, so I'm going to get the object selection tool, and it's going to take a second to find the eagle, and when it does, it did. I'll click on the eagle to get my selection. I don't think I need to refine the selection. I think that's good enough, so we're going to leave it just like that. But instead of using an adjustment layer, this time I'm going to use a filter. I'm going to go up to Filter, Sharpen, and you'll notice there's an unsharp mask and a high pass mask. Those are both in Photoshop. Photoshop also has probably about like 8 or 9 different sharpening options. Here we only have the 3. There's one called Clarity, which isn't in Photoshop. But let's go with the unsharp mask. I'm familiar with how to use that. We'll bring this up here. And what I want to do is just sharpen it enough where it looks realistic, but not so much that it looks bad. So it does a really good job, as you can see. So if I go and I get a split screen view, there's after, there's before, there's after, there's before, there's after, and there's before. So you can see it does a really nice job. But I think it might be just a little bit too sharp. So let's back it off just a little bit. And click Apply. All right, so it did it right to that layer. So what I should have did, which was good Photoshop practice and would be good Affinity Photo practice also, whenever I'm going to use a filter, is I should duplicate that layer and apply the filter to the duplicated layer. So I should have hit Command or Control J to begin with. That would have been a better way, or a way you should do it if you're working with filters in Affinity Photo 2. It still works fine. It's just that now it's baked into this layer. And if I had duplicated the layer and applied the sharpening to the duplicated layer and I didn't like it, I could just throw that duplicated layer away and it's gone. So that's just, the good practice to get used to doing. And I didn't do it here. Now I still have my selection. I want to brighten up the eagle a little bit. So I'm going to go to the adjustment layers and I am going to go to brightness contrast and I'm going to go to lighter and just back it off just a little bit. Okay, now I'd like to darken the background. Now, theoretically, I should be able to invert the selection by hitting Shift-Command-I, but there's like a bug or something in Affinity Photo, and I found that it doesn't always work. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to get rid of the selection by hitting Command or Control D to deselect. Then use the Object Selection tool to select the background by clicking on the background. So now I have a selection of the background. And then I'll go to darker and I'll just darken that background. That's what I wanted to do. Maybe not that dark. And that's that. And if you look at the layers panel, you see I have the 2 adjustment layers. One of them is for the background and the other one is for the eagle. And that's it. That's get rid of those marginets first, Command or Control D. And that's it. That's how you go about maybe doing a complete edit using Affinity Photo. Again, you start out in the develop persona and then bring the image into the photo persona to do other things to it. And hopefully that gets you started using Affinity Photo. Thank you, everyone who watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.